Sound speeding.
Mark.
Sherry, I'm going to have you read this letter. Just read it nice and slow. Just take your time.
This here is a letter Brian wrote to me back in October of 1989. Dear Sherry, hi. It is very hard to write this letter to you. I am very sorry for the crimes they say I committed. If I did do this, there had to be a lot of things going crazy in my head. Sherry, no matter what happened or who did it, I want you to know that I am still your brother and I love you. You can hate my guts and want me dead all you want, but I love you. You're all I have left and I don't want to lose you. Please accept me as a human and not an animal. Take care. Love always and forever, your brother, Brian T. Britton. This letter basically, it means nothing because he doesn't admit to anything. No remorse, no I'm sorry that I did this. I live every day without people I cared about, without having them around. You have no sense of remorse. You've never shed a tear. You won't even admit that you did do it. Things must have been crazy in my head. You try to put the blame on something else, and it's like you can't even admit what you did. And you want freedom? Guys, I love you just so much. Not a day goes by that I don't think of you. I wish that you were here. Can't believe I've spent over half my life without you. When I go to the cemetery, it reminds me that this is what I've lost. I'd do anything just to have them here for a hug or a kiss, to tell them I love them. It's like I would give anything to even hear their voices. I can't get that back because Brian took everything away from me. Things just slowly were spiraling with him. Looking back at it now, there's all kinds of signs. Back then it was just like you didn't really think of it. This is where I grew up from the age of 7 to 19. We had good times here. We jumped rope and rode our bikes around the yard. My father would barbecue out there over by the tree. And then my cousin Tammy and I, we would sit on the side of the house, listen to music and sunbathe. And then Jason would come out and run around. Brian, he usually would play with the boys across the street because Jason was little. When Brian was younger, Brian was the sweetest kid, always doing little boy things. He would ride his bike around the neighborhood. He had his little Matchbox cars, and he just was your normal little boy. But Brian could be selfish at times. My dad would play different board games with Jason, and Brian would be like, hey, Dad, let's do this or let's do that. It was just like he had to have my father's attention instead of Jason. And he was insistent. Brian would be relentless on it, and my father would be just like, okay, Jason, we'll play another time. It's almost like he's missing something. Common sense, concern, respect for other people. If it's not about him, he doesn't care. Here he's got life in his eyes. It's just amazing that someone so sweet and innocent here could be so cold and calculating years later. You would have never thought that that sweet little boy would turn into this monster. Growing up, me and Brian, we didn't always get along. Normal sibling rivalries. Sometimes we got along great. Then there were times we would fight. He had this thing with camouflage. He loved his camouflage jeans, his camouflage jacket. So I would make fun of him wearing it. And he didn't like it, so he would punch me. And I kept teasing him more, and he would punch me more. But then he doesn't stop hitting me. He wouldn't listen to me just saying, hey, stop, that hurts. The only way I could stop him would be to kick him. Because now he's in pain. Somebody's saying, hey, stop, that hurts. You would normally stop unless you just don't care. He didn't care if he hit his sister. When he hit like the 13 to 16 years, he started doing like things that were rebellious. They started out like as little small things. And then it was like each step was like one step worse than the last one. When I was going on 17, I got my first job, and we used to get paid in cash. On Fridays, I would put it on my mom's dresser to put into my account when she went to work on Monday. Well, there were times my mom would go to do my deposit for me, and monies were missing out of it. It was obvious it was Brian, because Brian didn't have a job, and Brian's getting things.
Hey, did you take any money from Mom's drawer?
No.
It's like, wait a second. I was missing $20 out of my deposit this week. That magazine subscription's $20. Okay, so that's where the money's going. I thought it was pretty low that he was stealing from his own family. It's like family usually helps each other out. It's like that didn't matter to him.
Are you sure? I thought I saw it there earlier today.
I haven't seen your money.
But I just let it slide.
Anything else?
No.
$20 here, $20 there was not worth a blowout fight. It was kind of like, let's pick and choose our battles. It's just a phase he's going through. I'd say he had to be around 15 or so when he started the obsession with the war movies. There's never a time that it really struck me as not being normal, but he had a plan. It scares me to know that there was this much hatred in him, and I really didn't see this in him. Evil, it does exist in this world. It's not like the evil you see in the scary movies. Here you have your typical all-American, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, and there's evil. Nobody knows that. It makes me wonder what went wrong. He was obsessed with like the war movies and stuff that were coming out.
You're watching this again?
My father and brother would sit there and they'd watch the different shows on TV, but Brian got obsessed with it. He'd watch them over and over again. He was always talking about how he wanted to join the Marines when he got old enough. This is what I want to do in life. I felt the military would be a good choice for him because there he would learn more discipline. It's like, hey, he's interested in something. This is a good thing. In his room, he had all different kinds of military magazines. He had other military-type posters. He was collecting hand grenades and bullets, gun magazines. He had the camouflage that he would wear. Just about everything he owned was either camouflage or having to do in some way, shape, or form with the military. But we didn't really see anything wrong with him ordering stuff that had to do with the military. After all, that's what he wants to do. My father would go hunting with my Uncle Barry, so having the guns in the house would be a natural thing, being a hunting family. They didn't feel that they had to put them somewhere and lock them up because there was no fear that anything would happen.
So raise it up, make sure you've got the gun stock against your shoulder.
My father taught him on the back porch how to use the gun.
Line that side up there. That gun stock's firmly against the shoulder, okay?
The rule was you don't touch them unless I'm home. And then, and only then, I give you permission to do so, and it's done in a safe environment.
Remember, don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready for the kill shot.
My father was teaching him how to use the shotguns and stuff right up on the porch here. And they used to have targets down where those sheds are. Never would have thought that he's teaching his son how to use the gun properly, and his son's going to do what he did in a few years to come. I don't think he would have ever taught him how to use it properly if he had figured Brian would do something like that. He went through this phase where he was interested in like the Chinese throwing stars, the nunchucks and stuff like that. He used to think it was fun to just throw them at the wood paneling in the living room. And it just got to the point where my parents were like, "What are you doing?"
Brian.
But he just had blatant disregard for that.
You can't keep doing that. Now give it to me.
We take him away from him, he gets another one from somebody. I tell him no, he does what he wants. We don't understand why he's not listening to us. It was an atmosphere of worry. I think they were looking at the big picture of if they kept on him just long enough for him to graduate high school, then it's like he could go into the military. Once they got him there, he would be learning respect. The things that he was doing to my parents, the military wouldn't put up with. At 19, you don't expect to wake up and have your world destroyed. Growing up, once we started dating, we had rules that our education was more important than seeing our boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, we could see him one day a week. Usually it was like on the weekends since there was homework and stuff during the week.
It sucks. The worst.
I had no issues with it. It was like, okay, it's understandable. Education comes first. Brian didn't agree with that. It was his very first girlfriend. Any waking moment he was up, he wanted to be spending time with her. And he didn't like being told what he could and couldn't do.
Honey, could you excuse us? I need to speak to Brian.
Why do you always have to ruin everything?
I just think you should be spending a little less time together.
He would start raising his voice.
I can hang out with whoever I want to hang out with. It's my decision to make, not yours.
You can't tell me that I can't see my girlfriend. I'm a teenager. I can do what I want.
I keep explaining this stuff to you.
I hate you. I wish you were dead.
How stupid are you?
And he'd just walk off and go to his room.
Why don't you just die?
Looking through my 19-year-old eyes, it just seemed like normal teen stuff, normal teen angst, rebellion. Looking back now, I see things with what he did as like a downward spiral. If he wanted his way, he was just going to keep going at it. It didn't matter how many times you said no. It would be a never-ending battle. They were just trying and trying, feeling helpless because everything they're trying didn't work.
He'll grow out of it. He has to.
What if he doesn't?
His obsessions were just military and his girlfriend, and it was like his family that didn't mean anything anymore. You get to a point where it's like, well, what do you do? January 22nd of 89. That day, his girlfriend had come up to the house with him and brought up vodka to the house.
That's crazy.
Well, let me just chug a bottle of vodka and see what happens to me. Then he said he felt funny and he passed out.
Brian! Hey! Wake up!
His girlfriend called my father at work. My father took Brian to the hospital. He ended up having his stomach pumped from the alcohol. And had my father not come home, there's a possibility that Brian could have died. I wish I could go back in time and know what I know now to prevent my father from saving his life that day. If Brian had died, yeah, we would have been all upset, but he doesn't deserve to live with what he has done. I know that's not a nice thing to say. I've been told that I should forgive him by people. I can't forgive. It was March 20th of '89. My grandparents' 45th wedding anniversary. Everybody's going.
Come on, Brian. Get changed. We're going.
I'm not going.
Your grandparents will want to see you.
I said I'm not going.
He wanted to see his girlfriend. Didn't matter that it was his grandmother's anniversary, that everybody's going to be there.
Brian, it's their wedding anniversary.
I don't care.
Family to him didn't mean anything anymore. It's almost like it's a bother to him that he has family that he can do things with. Everything was perfect. My dad picked me up at college around 9 o'clock. I think my class was over. My mom was all happy. Before we went to bed, we would hug and kiss each other goodnight. I showered and called my boyfriend, talked to him for a while, and went to bed. When I woke up in the hospital, it's like, wait, this isn't my bedroom. Where am I? I had a very bad headache, and there was ringing in my ears. I touched my head and realized there was bandaging on there, and I'm hooked up to machinery, and I have a gaping hole in my side, and I have stitches all over. And I'm just like, okay, what happened? Life. It's a scary thought. It's a scary feeling waking up in the hospital and realizing that you're injured and you have no idea how you were injured. Every time I woke up, the same thought would come to my mind. Oh, I'm just dreaming. This can't be real. This stuff doesn't happen in real life. I'm in the hospital, hooked up to tons of machines, and every time I would wake up and I asked about my mom, my dad, my little brother Jason.
What's going on?
If I'm in the hospital, where are they? Why aren't they in the room with me?
Where's my mom and dad?
Nobody could explain to me what happened because they themselves didn't know.
Why won't anyone tell me what's going on?
I did 32 years in that police department, and I've seen a lot of really nasty things, but I will never forget that morning. And I can say this to you, I don't think you could ever prepare yourself going through that door for what you were going to find. It was a horrific crime scene. I mean, there was blood all over that place. As soon as we opened the door, we saw the blood and the hair and the bone embedded in the wall. Something terrible has happened here. We really did not know if there was an active shooter in that house, and we had to assume that there was. We go up the stairs and look to the right, which was the mom and dad's bedroom, and he's still in bed. Been shot in the face and shot in the chest. When you walk out of that room, you look directly across the hall, and on the floor was Brian's mom. She's obviously deceased. We found Jason next to his mom, and his head was almost crushed. He decided he would use the shotgun as a club, and he did. He used it on his brother's head. We walk a little further into the house, and we find Sherry in her bed, covered in blood. She had been shot twice. One of the shots actually took a part of her skull. She was shot again on the left side in the abdomen. We weren't sure she was going to survive. And we got her out of there as fast as we could. She is so fortunate to be alive today. Brian was the only survivor that we could talk to. So we talked to him right away. He's saying that somebody forced their way into the house. This is Brian Britton on the day he was arrested, on the day that he killed almost every member in his family. He was sitting in the chair opposite my desk. The officers were interviewing him. He's not showing any remorse. I stood there and listened to him for about 2 minutes, and I said, Brian, Sherry's alive. We talked to her. Where did you put the guns? And he immediately said they're in the attic. And that's where they were found. He goes on to try and justify what he had done, telling us about the problems with his mother and his father.
You're so stupid!
Brian!
And his mother was always on his case and wouldn't let him see his girlfriend and wouldn't let him stay out at night and insisted that he go to school. So he was trying to justify his actions, but there was no way you could justify what he just did.
I kept thinking, oh, I'm in a bad dream, a really bad dream. This isn't real. I have nothing left. I lost my world. Now what happens to me? Here I am, 19, no place to go. My home is no longer my home. Mom and Dad are gone, Jason's gone. I felt very lonely. Sometimes I wished I had died, and I was always like, why was I the one who survived? Why me? Why couldn't my mom survive? Why couldn't my dad have survived? Why didn't Jason live? Why was I the lucky one? There's so many things that have happened in my life since then. To miss me graduating college. When I married my kid's father, I didn't have my father to give me away. They didn't get to have the joys of their daughter getting married, having grandchildren. It's not the same going down to the cemetery and talking to the headstone, telling them that you love them. I would give any amount, anything anybody wanted, to even hear their voices, just to hear my dad laugh one last time, to hear Jason ask for cookies. Sometimes I wish I still had the answering machine. My mother had done the voice on it, just to hear her voice. I still fully don't understand the why. That's always been the big, huge question, and it's never been answered. I don't remember anything from the time I went to bed on March 21st until whenever I woke up in the hospital. The whole thing is just a big blank. There's a lot of stuff that I probably saw that morning. It's somewhere locked up in here somewhere. Where, I don't know.
Well, here we start with the video. Is the front of your house as it looked that day.
I honestly don't think I could handle it, but I want everyone in the world to know what a monster he is. That's just too horrific. That's really scary.
Sherry?
Hi.
How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Okay. I'm glad to see you. I really am. Come on, let's go in.
Okay.
Well, here we start with the video. Is the front of your house as it looked that day. And as we entered your home, up the stairs and to the right to your dad's room, he shot your father first. He figured your father was probably the only one in the house that could stop him. Your dad was still in the bed. He was deceased. He had two obvious wounds. And your mother came out of the kitchen screaming, and he shot her. And in the living room, you found your mom. Your mom was here. Jason was alongside of your mom. He actually fired from the hallway at Jason, but did not kill him instantly. And Jason was able to get up and go out into the living room and lay down by your mom. This is what we found to the immediate left of the door. Blood, hair, skin. This is where you were shot. You went up the stairs. You went into the bathroom. You can see blood on the walls here. That's from you, from your hands. You went from the bathroom back to your bed, and that's how we found you in the bed.
The amount of blood was very shocking. There were things I found out that I didn't know happened. I had gotten up from where I had been shot and went back to my bedroom. I didn't know that I had made a stop in the bathroom. I never knew that. I guess I felt comfortable in my bed, so I just went back to my room for
You did go back to
comfort.
your bed, yeah. And that's basically what we had at that point. You were still alive, and so we immediately got you out of the house and started treating you and took you to the hospital. He told everybody that he had issues with your mother because of his girlfriend, and that she was disciplining him all the time for getting home late and stuff like that. In my estimation, it was premeditated. He thought about this before he did it, and I think he thought about it for a while. I don't think it just was a spur-of-the-moment thing that night. I don't believe that at all.
Realizing it's your own brother who did this, that's just too horrific. After having talked to the detective yesterday and seeing the pictures, it's like now I have the hard, true facts of what happened that day. I've seen now they didn't even have a chance. They were defenseless. It makes me feel a little more at ease knowing what actually did happen, not just what people were telling me. It's amazing I'm still alive. Every 2 years, Brian has a parole hearing. Every 2 years, I fight to keep him in prison. Every 2 years, I have to relive the nightmare of that day. I must write a letter to explain to the parole board this is why he shouldn't get out. To whom it may concern, I have been notified that Brian is up for parole again. As the sole surviving victim, I am writing this letter to ask that his parole be denied a second time. 26 and a half years have passed since the murders took place. What has Brian done in these past 26 and a half years to prepare him for a life outside of prison? Do you know for certain that Brian would not get angry at something else and snap and kill someone else? Why should I be forced to be fearful for the rest of my life, worrying that Brian may attack me or my children and loved ones? It never ends for me. Every year, it's not fair that I have to keep reliving this. But I'm doing it to help keep Brian in prison because he doesn't deserve freedom. He killed 3 people, one an innocent child who didn't even have the beginnings of a life. And he has not shown remorse. The hurt from what he did, it never goes away. It stays right here. That's why the tattoo I got is right by my heart. Because that's where my parents and brothers stay. They're always in my heart, always in my thoughts.
It was a foggy morning in Northern California, the mist clinging to the edges of the eucalyptus trees lining the quiet suburban street. The sun hadn't yet burned through the gray veil, and the neighborhood was still wrapped in the soft hum of early dawn. But for the Parker family, the tranquility was shattered, replaced by an icy dread that would linger for decades. It began with a scream. A neighbor heard it at exactly 6:43 a.m., piercing the calm like a gunshot in slow motion. Doors flung open. Dogs barked. Police sirens cut through the morning fog before they even left the dispatcher's mouth. By the time officers arrived at 1428 Magnolia Avenue, the scene was frozen in an eerie tableau of violence and silence. The living room was immaculate, the cushions on the sofa perfectly aligned, but the air was thick with a metallic tang that made stomachs churn. On the polished hardwood floor lay 17-year-old Emily Parker, eyes wide open in terror, a pool of crimson encircling her small frame. The entire street would carry the echo of that morning forever. A cold case was born. Neighbors described the Parker home as the epitome of suburban perfection. White picket fences, a rose garden meticulously pruned, a mailbox emblazoned with the family name. Emily, a high school senior, had the kind of life that seemed immune to darkness. Honor roll student, captain of the debate team, the youngest daughter in a close-knit family. Her parents, David and Laura Parker, had built a life of order, routine, and predictability, the kind that lulls a community into a false sense of security. But in the span of an hour, all of that certainty dissolved. For investigators, the question was immediate and haunting. Who could have done this, and why? There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, nothing that screamed robbery or random violence. The door had been locked, the windows latched. Yet Emily was gone, taken by a killer who had slipped through the cracks of a peaceful neighborhood without leaving a single fingerprint, or so it seemed. The initial sweep of the scene revealed subtle oddities that would baffle detectives for years. A single shoe, misplaced in the corner of the kitchen. A shattered picture frame, glass scattered like tiny diamonds across the Persian rug. A faint smear of blood on the stair railing, leading investigators to theorize that Emily had tried to defend herself, or perhaps drag herself somewhere in a futile effort to escape. Her bedroom held no clues. Her diary, open to the last entry, spoke of ordinary teenage concerns, grades, friends, and an upcoming school dance. Nothing hinted at the lurking danger that would cut her life short. Investigators collected DNA samples, hair fibers, and trace evidence, cataloging every scrap of material as if each microscopic particle could whisper the identity of a predator. And yet, the trail ran cold within weeks. The community was gripped by fear. Local news outlets broadcasted Emily's face endlessly, the same photograph of her laughing at a summer barbecue, hair catching the sunlight, eyes bright and untroubled. Flyers lined telephone poles, storefront windows, and lampposts. Missing or murdered? The headline screamed. Parents clutched their children tighter. Teenagers walked home in groups, casting nervous glances over their shoulders. And while law enforcement promised relentless pursuit, the truth was that leads dried up almost immediately. Eyewitnesses provided conflicting accounts, each story slightly different, each one leading nowhere. A neighbor had seen a van parked outside the house the night before, white, unmarked, with tinted windows. Another swore they saw a figure in a hoodie near the garden gate. But descriptions were vague, and memories faded in the cruel erosion of time. For Detective Mark Reynolds, assigned to the case, it became more than a job. Emily's death haunted him. He would return to Magnolia Avenue at odd hours, retracing the steps of the night, staring at the walls as if they could speak, trying to decode the silence. He pored over forensic reports, the coroner's notes, autopsy photographs that refused to leave his mind. Emily had suffered blunt force trauma, but no murder weapon was ever found. Whoever did this had planned meticulously, executed flawlessly, and vanished without a trace. The community demanded answers, but each step forward in the investigation seemed to dissolve into frustration. Days became weeks, weeks turned into months, months into years. And yet, every anniversary of Emily's death reopened the wound, reminding everyone that the shadow of a killer still lingered among them. As the 2000s dawned, forensic technology advanced, offering a glimmer of hope. DNA testing became more sensitive, capable of picking up genetic material that had once been invisible. Detectives reopened the files, dusting off envelopes, re-examining fibers, and cross-referencing databases that had exponentially grown. Cold cases like Emily's were being solved in other states, stories of justice decades delayed, killers finally unmasked by science. But here in California, the trail remained stubbornly elusive. Subtle inconsistencies in witness statements nagged at Reynolds. A teenage boy claimed he saw a woman near the Parker home, but her identity remained unknown. Another tip came from a former neighbor, now living out of state, who remembered a strange vehicle repeatedly circling the block in the weeks before the tragedy. Each lead ignited hope, then dissolved into frustration, like smoke slipping through a clenched fist. Over time, the story of Emily Parker became a cautionary tale whispered in classrooms and over coffee tables. Psychologists and criminologists analyzed the case, offering theories ranging from predatory strangers to someone closer to home. Theories swirled, conspiracies flourished, but the facts remained stubbornly the same. A teenage girl was dead, a killer walked free, and a community's innocence was irrevocably shattered. Reynolds, now with more than a decade of experience on cold cases, never gave up. He kept photographs of the crime scene in his office, sticky notes marking details others might dismiss. He revisited the original sketches of the suspect, the timeline of Emily's last known movements, and the inconsistencies that had baffled his peers. Then, one seemingly ordinary Thursday morning, a breakthrough arrived in the form of a manila envelope. The handwriting was sloppy, almost childlike. Inside, a collection of fibers, photographs, and a single note. "I know what happened to Emily." The tip came anonymously, but it was enough to reignite the case. Detectives followed up, interrogating acquaintances, checking alibis, and running the evidence through new databases. A match emerged, a partial DNA profile that had never been fully tested, hidden in the back of a drawer, overlooked in the chaos of the initial investigation. It was the thread that could unravel the entire tapestry of deceit, the key to finally naming the person who had taken a life and shattered a community. The investigation intensified. Surveillance footage from nearby stores, once grainy and nearly useless, was enhanced using modern techniques. Vehicles were traced, phone records subpoenaed, digital footprints reconstructed with painstaking detail. Each piece of evidence, once dormant, now began to speak. Reynolds felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread. The longer the case remained unsolved, the more people had moved on. But for him, and for Emily's family, closure had never arrived. This sudden surge of leads threatened to reopen old wounds, even as it promised the truth. By the summer of 2023, the culmination of decades of dogged detective work led to a startling revelation. The DNA matched a man with a prior record, someone who had been on the fringes of Emily's life, unnoticed by the initial sweep of investigators. His criminal history included minor assaults, yet nothing that suggested the monstrous act he had committed in 1998. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community, reopening a collective memory that had been suppressed for 25 years. Parents wept quietly in church pews. Former classmates reunited to process the impossible truth. Newspapers screamed across their front pages, "Cold case solved. Killer revealed after 25 years." The headline was both triumphant and chilling, a reminder that evil can linger undetected for decades, waiting for the right combination of persistence, technology, and sheer luck to be exposed. Emily's parents, now aged and wearied by grief, expressed a mixture of relief and lingering horror. Justice had finally been served, but the gap of a quarter-century left scars no verdict could heal. Detectives reflected on the long nights, the false leads, and the emotional toll exacted by an unsolved murder. Reynolds, staring at the arrest report, allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, but immediately returned to the haunting thought: how many other Emilys were out there, waiting for someone to finally see them, to notice the subtle signs that could prevent tragedy? The case had been solved, yet its resonance would persist, a grim echo through the streets of Magnolia Avenue, a constant reminder of mortality, justice delayed, and the unrelenting pursuit of truth. Even now, years after the arrest, the story of Emily Parker circulates in the shadows of true crime forums, in documentaries, and whispered conversations. It has become emblematic of the terrifying possibility that a life can be stolen silently. A perfect home can hide darkness, and that some killers, no matter how careful, eventually leave a trace. The 1998 cold case serves as a blueprint for investigators and a cautionary tale for communities, illustrating that vigilance, persistence, and advances in forensic science can converge to shine light into the darkest corners of human behavior. And yet, the emotional gravity remains palpable. 25 years of waiting, 25 years of pain, 25 years of questions finally answered, leaving the lingering ache of what could have been prevented, what could have been noticed, what was lost forever. The fog that morning in Northern California eventually lifted, revealing sun-dappled streets and the ordinary rhythm of life. But for those who remember, the mist carries more than moisture. It carries a memory, a warning, a story of tragedy and resolution intertwined. Emily Parker's life, though cut short, now speaks through the justice achieved, but the shadow she leaves behind stretches long, a testament to the resilience of those who refuse to forget and the relentless pursuit of truth that even time cannot defeat. The arrest of the man in 2023 sent shockwaves far beyond Magnolia Avenue. Headlines flashed across California and national news outlets. Cold case solved. Killer revealed after 25 years. Social media exploded with disbelief. Comment threads overflowed with a mix of outrage, relief, and disbelief that a crime so meticulously executed could remain unsolved for a quarter of a century. Families everywhere revisited old, unresolved disappearances, wondering if a similar fate had silently shadowed their own lives. And while the Parker family could finally breathe the air of justice, the truth of Emily's final moments remained locked behind the veil of memory and forensic reconstruction. Detective Reynolds, veteran of countless cold cases, was pulled into an exhausting schedule of interrogations, evidence reviews, and court preparations. The suspect, a man whose identity had remained hidden for decades, exhibited an eerie calm. He spoke in clipped sentences, denying some details while inadvertently confirming others. His demeanor was unsettling, a chilling reminder of the capacity for human deception. Investigators meticulously pieced together the timeline of that night in 1998, reconstructing movements with the precision of a crime lab blueprint. From a van circling Magnolia Avenue to the moments leading up to the fatal encounter, every motion was scrutinized. As new details emerged, the narrative of Emily's last hours took shape. She had left her friend's house on the evening of October 12, 1998, walking along a familiar path lined with orange streetlights that cast long, haunting shadows. A witness reported seeing her smile and wave, unaware that she was being followed. The suspect, using a combination of stealth and premeditation, shadowed her movements. Forensic evidence later revealed fibers on Emily's clothing that matched the interior upholstery of his van. The subtle traces that had gone unnoticed in 1998 suddenly became undeniable proof. DNA collected from the vehicle's steering wheel, previously untested due to technological limitations, matched samples from the crime scene. The meticulous planning of a killer who had once evaded justice was finally undone by the slow, persistent march of science. Emily's bedroom, once a shrine of ordinary teenage life, was revisited by investigators armed with new forensic tools. Swabs taken from her pillowcase, long preserved in evidence lockers, yielded previously undetectable material. Strands of hair, minute skin cells, and trace fibers painted a picture of the struggle that had been invisible to earlier investigators. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it spoke volumes about the desperation of her final moments. The investigation also uncovered a cache of personal items, small objects displaced from drawers and shelves, which, when re-examined, suggested a brief but intense confrontation. The killer had entered her room with precision, leaving almost nothing behind, yet leaving enough for the patient eye of modern forensics to reconstruct the horror. The arrest also reopened old wounds in the community. Former neighbors recalled oddities they had dismissed at the time. The unmarked van parked near the street late at night, the shadowy figure glimpsed through the fog, the faint sounds that had been attributed to neighborhood animals. Parents reevaluated memories of casual walks and routine errands, wondering if the past had been silently influenced by a predator in their midst. Teachers who had once observed Emily as cheerful and conscientious now reflected on subtle changes in behavior in the weeks before her death. A quiet unease, fleeting glances toward the street, a hesitation that, in hindsight, signaled a brewing danger that no one could have anticipated. Investigators, driven by a mix of duty and a desire to honor Emily's memory, dove deeper into the suspect's background. They discovered a pattern of minor offenses, often brushed aside as youthful indiscretions or minor transgressions. But when viewed cumulatively, these incidents revealed a trajectory toward violence. The man had changed residences multiple times, maintained a low profile, and managed to blend into ordinary communities without raising suspicion. It was a chilling reminder that evil often hides in plain sight, concealed beneath the mundane routines of everyday life. The trial, when it began, was a spectacle of emotion and revelation. Testimony from forensic experts, digital analysts, and eyewitnesses painted a mosaic of events that stretched back a generation. Photographs of Emily, once circulating only in missing persons flyers, were projected on screens in the courtroom, each image a stark contrast to the cold, clinical recounting of evidence. The prosecution meticulously described the methods employed by the killer, emphasizing the premeditation, the stealth, and the calculated nature of the crime. Meanwhile, the defense sought to humanize the accused, presenting inconsistencies and gaps in memory, a common tactic in cases where decades had passed. The tension in the courtroom mirrored the unresolved suspense that had gripped the community for 25 years, every word echoing with the weight of history. For the Parker family, the proceedings were both cathartic and painful. Laura Parker, once a vibrant and confident woman, now bore the quiet fatigue of years spent waiting for answers. David Parker, stoic and determined, attended every hearing, taking detailed notes, asking pointed questions, never allowing a single aspect of the case to slip through the cracks. Emily's siblings, now adults themselves, grappled with a mixture of relief, anger, and sorrow. Their lives, shaped irrevocably by tragedy, were forced to confront the details of their sister's death, revisiting every moment, every memory, every interaction with the same sharp focus demanded by the judicial process. In parallel, the media chronicled the unfolding events with relentless intensity. News outlets recounted the details of the original investigation, emphasizing the breakthroughs in forensic technology that had finally brought justice. Social media platforms buzzed with threads dissecting each court session, every piece of evidence, and every statement made by the suspect. True crime enthusiasts and amateur sleuths pored over case files, analyzing the minutiae with a zeal bordering on obsession. The narrative of Emily Parker became a study in patience, perseverance, and the eventual triumph of methodical investigation over human malevolence. Despite the arrest, the story maintained an aura of haunting ambiguity. While the physical evidence and the suspect's own admissions provided closure on many fronts, questions lingered. Why had the killer chosen Emily? Were there other victims, unknown and unconnected, whose experiences would never be fully understood? The psychological underpinnings of his actions became a topic of intense scrutiny, drawing attention from criminal psychologists, sociologists, and law enforcement strategists. Each analysis provided insight, but no explanation could fully reconcile the horror with the ordinariness of the surroundings in which it occurred. The case also inspired significant changes in local law enforcement procedures. Departments across the state reviewed protocols for handling cold cases, preserving evidence, and revisiting unresolved investigations. Emily's tragedy became a catalyst for reform, demonstrating the importance of meticulous documentation, long-term commitment, and the integration of emerging technologies into traditional investigative frameworks. It underscored the notion that no case is truly forgotten if there is someone willing to see it through to the end. As the verdict approached, the community of Magnolia Avenue felt a collective exhale. The man responsible for the decades-long shadow over their neighborhood was facing accountability. Yet, the emotional landscape remained complex. Relief mingled with grief, triumph intertwined with sorrow. Emily Parker's life, stolen at 17, could not be restored. Justice, though finally served, could not erase the memories etched into the sidewalks, the gardens, and the very walls of the Parker home. The case, while legally resolved, continued to echo in the minds and hearts of all who had been touched by it. Detective Reynolds, reflecting on the conclusion of the investigation, understood the fragile balance between satisfaction and lingering unease. The arrest and forthcoming trial offered a form of justice, but it also illuminated the chilling reality that the capacity for human violence persists, often unseen, in the quiet corners of everyday life. The case was a testament to persistence, patience, and the relentless pursuit of truth, but it was also a sobering reminder of vulnerability, randomness, and the consequences of human malevolence left unchecked. Even as the courtroom doors closed and the legal machinery proceeded toward resolution, the streets of Magnolia Avenue retained an intangible residue of that fateful October night in 1998. Residents, both past and present, carried an awareness of fragility, a recognition that normalcy is often fragile and that the presence of darkness can go unnoticed until it is far too late. The arrest had provided answers, but could not undo the fear, the grief, or the memory of a life cut short. In the quiet moments, long after headlines faded and news cameras departed, the shadow of the past lingered, a persistent reminder that Emily Parker's story was not just a case file, but a cautionary tale, a lesson in vigilance, and a narrative of both tragedy and resolution. And so, the cold case that had haunted California for 25 years moved from mystery to memory. The killer had been revealed, the evidence corroborated, the trial underway, yet the human impact remained profound. Families in the area spoke in hushed tones about the fragility of life, the unseen dangers in familiar places, and the necessity of awareness. The story of Emily Parker became a reference point for investigators, educators, and ordinary citizens alike, illustrating that patience, technology, and an unwavering commitment to truth could, eventually, pierce even the deepest veil of secrecy. But even with the justice achieved, a quiet, unshakable tension persisted. The terror of those final moments, reconstructed in painstaking detail by forensic teams and investigators, continued to resonate. It reminded the world that the past is never truly gone, that unresolved violence leaves marks invisible to the naked eye, and that the pursuit of justice is often a marathon measured not in days or months, but in decades. Emily Parker's story, her loss, and the ultimate revelation of her killer were etched indelibly into the consciousness of all who had watched, waited, and hoped for closure. The 1998 cold case had ended, yet its lessons, shadows, and haunting echoes would remain far longer, a testament to human resilience, the power of technology, and the relentless pursuit of truth that refuses to be silenced. Even after the arrest, the shadow of Emily Parker's death lingered over Magnolia Avenue. The streets, once familiar and safe, felt heavier, haunted by memories too vivid to ignore. Detectives returned repeatedly to the neighborhood, combing through details that had once seemed trivial. Faint tire tracks in the damp earth near the curb, scuff marks on a corner of the Parker driveway, a set of footprints barely visible in the garden soil. Each detail, overlooked in 1998, was now re-examined with surgical precision. Technology had advanced, witness recollection sharpened, and the pressure to reconstruct every facet of that night grew more urgent. Every fragment of the past held a story, a clue, a piece of the puzzle that would finally reveal the full scope of what had happened. The suspect's profile emerged with clarity under modern scrutiny. His movements, meticulously mapped through phone records, vehicle registrations, and prior minor offenses, painted the picture of a man obsessed with control. For years, he had blended seamlessly into communities, appearing ordinary while harboring a darkness that few could perceive. Investigators discovered patterns in his past behavior: periods of stalking, obsessive attention toward young women, minor thefts that escalated in intensity. It became clear that Emily's murder was not random. She had been chosen, monitored, and ultimately trapped by a predator whose patience rivaled that of the most meticulous criminals. Reconstructing the timeline of October 12, 1998, became a painstaking process. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses, enhanced with technology unavailable at the time, revealed glimpses of a white van navigating the streets near Magnolia Avenue in the hours leading up to Emily's disappearance. The vehicle, long dismissed by initial investigators as irrelevant, now served as a crucial link. Forensic evidence from the van's interior, combined with DNA recovered from Emily's clothing, confirmed that the suspect had been present, his movements calculated and deliberate. The combination of old evidence and new technology created a mosaic of truth that had eluded authorities for a quarter of a century. As the trial approached, the psychological toll on the Parker family became evident. Laura Parker, once the picture of strength, struggled to navigate the emotional upheaval of reliving her daughter's final moments in court. David Parker, stoic yet deeply affected, sat through hours of testimony, absorbing every technical detail, every forensic report, every digital reconstruction of Emily's last movements. Emily's siblings, now adults, wrestled with conflicting emotions: relief at finally identifying the killer, anger at the decades-long delay, sorrow for a sister they had lost too soon. The courtroom became a theater of human emotion, blending procedural exactitude with the raw intensity of grief and anticipation. Prosecutors meticulously detailed the sequence of events, emphasizing the premeditated nature of the crime. They describe how the suspect had studied Emily's routine, noted her interactions, and tracked her movements with an almost obsessive focus. The forensic narrative painted a portrait of meticulous preparation: fibers from the van transferred to Emily's clothing, traced DNA confirming contact, and the subtle signs of struggle in her bedroom reconstructed to reveal the horror she had endured. Each piece of evidence, once a faint whisper in the original investigation, now screamed with clarity. Meanwhile, the defense sought to challenge the reliability of decades-old evidence, questioning witness recollections and highlighting the potential for contamination or degradation of forensic samples. They painted a picture of uncertainty, emphasizing that memory fades and evidence can be misinterpreted. Yet the prosecution countered with the precision of modern forensic science, demonstrating that the combination of DNA, digital reconstruction, and corroborating testimonies created an unbreakable chain of proof. The courtroom became a battle of timelines, forensics, and human memory, a confrontation between the persistence of truth and the erosion of doubt. Outside the courtroom, Magnolia Avenue wrestled with its own quiet reckoning. Residents, some of whom had lived on the street during the late 1990s, reflected on the ordinary moments now tainted by hindsight. The sound of children playing, once comforting, now carried the weight of what had been lost. Streetlights flickered at dusk, casting elongated shadows that seemed to mirror the past. Community meetings discussed safety, awareness, and the importance of vigilance. But underlying these discussions was an unspoken acknowledgement that the neighborhood had never been entirely safe, that darkness could exist unnoticed amid the most familiar settings. Detective Reynolds, who had devoted nearly 3 decades to the case, found himself navigating a complex mix of professional satisfaction and personal reflection. He revisited his original notes, comparing the observations made in 1998 with the conclusions drawn in 2023. Each insight gained through technological advancement highlighted both the limitations of past investigative methods and the necessity of relentless persistence. Reynolds understood that solving the case was not merely an act of justice, but a reaffirmation of the commitment required to confront human malevolence, no matter how patient or hidden it may be. The suspect's demeanor during the trial further unsettled the community. Calm, almost indifferent, he provided minimal verbal responses, his presence a chilling reminder of the capacity for detachment in the face of devastating consequences. His ability to maintain composure while reliving the details of the crime in a courtroom filled with grief-stricken family members and spectators created a palpable tension. The contrast between the humanity of Emily's memory and the cold calculation of her killer underscored the chilling reality of the case. Evil can be methodical, and its victims, even in their absence, must bear witness to the resolution. As the jury deliberated, attention turned to the broader implications of the case. Cold cases across the state became focal points of renewed interest, law enforcement agencies reevaluating unresolved investigations with fresh eyes and advanced methodologies. Emily Parker's case became emblematic of the potential for justice, even after decades, highlighting the convergence of persistence, forensic science, and community engagement. Media coverage underscored the narrative, framing the case as both a victory for law enforcement and a cautionary tale for communities. Vigilance, documentation, and patience can ultimately unveil truths long buried. The verdict, when delivered, reverberated through the courtroom and beyond. Guilty on all counts, the man who had haunted Magnolia Avenue for a quarter of a century was held accountable. Relief swept through the Parker family, mingling with sorrow and the knowledge that justice, though delayed, had been achieved. For the community, the ruling provided closure, yet could not erase the memory of Emily Parker's life cut short. The acknowledgement of her killer's identity offered a form of narrative completion, but the emotional and psychological scars remained, reminders of the fragility of safety and the unpredictable presence of danger. Post-trial, the Parker family became vocal advocates for cold case resolution and forensic advancement. They engaged with local law enforcement, attended public forums, and shared Emily's story to emphasize the importance of persistence and attention to detail. Educational initiatives highlighted the lessons learned from the case, promoting awareness among teens and parents alike. The neighborhood, while forever changed, began to adapt, balancing the memory of tragedy with the resilience required to rebuild a sense of security. For Detective Reynolds, the closure of Emily Parker's case was a professional milestone, but also a deeply personal reflection. The relentless pursuit of a solution, spanning decades, underscored the profound responsibility carried by those who investigate the darkest aspects of human behavior. He often revisited the Parker home, observing subtle reminders of life continuing in the aftermath of tragedy. A neighbor tending a garden, children riding bicycles along the sidewalk, the quiet hum of ordinary routines resuming their place in the rhythm of the street. Yet beneath the surface, the case remained a constant, invisible presence, a testament to the cost of vigilance and the enduring impact of unresolved violence. Even with justice formally rendered, the psychological echo of Emily Parker's death persisted. Community members shared stories of heightened awareness, noting minor incidents that now held amplified significance. Parents recounted conversations with children about personal safety, neighbors described renewed attention to routine security measures, and law enforcement agencies documented procedural adjustments inspired by the lessons of the case. Emily Parker's story, while tragic, became a catalyst for awareness, education, and the broader societal understanding of vulnerability and prevention. The final chapter, however, was not merely legal or procedural. It was emotional, reflective, and enduring. The haunting image of Emily, her life interrupted in a single night, persisted in collective memory. The quiet streets, the familiar homes, and the once safe neighborhood now carried an invisible marker of tragedy overcome by persistence. The cold case had transitioned from unresolved anguish to a narrative of accountability, a chronicle that emphasized the intersection of human determination, scientific progress, and the relentless pursuit of truth. As Magnolia Avenue settled into a cautious routine, the memory of 1998 remained etched in every corner. The van that once prowled the streets, the footprints on damp soil, the subtle disturbances in the Parker home. These details became part of the community's collective consciousness. They served as reminders of the thin line between safety and danger, the unpredictable nature of evil, and the enduring significance of vigilance. The arrest, trial, and conviction provided closure, yet the psychological imprint of Emily Parker's loss remained, a silent, unyielding presence that underscored the gravity of every resolved and unresolved case alike. The narrative of Emily Parker, her final hours, and the eventual identification of her killer illustrates a fundamental truth. Time may obscure evidence, fade memories, and lull communities into complacency, but the combination of persistent investigation, scientific innovation, and human resolve can illuminate even the darkest corners. Cold cases, once considered frozen in mystery, can be thawed, revealing not only the perpetrators but also the resilience of those determined to pursue justice against overwhelming odds. Emily Parker's life, though tragically brief, continues to resonate as a symbol of endurance, awareness, and the unwavering quest to confront evil wherever it hides. Even after the courtroom fell silent and the gavel struck, declaring the man guilty of Emily Parker's murder, the reverberations of that night in 1998 continued to ripple through the community. Magnolia Avenue, a street once defined by quiet suburban charm, now carried the weight of memory, the shadow of loss, and the persistent reminder that evil had once walked unnoticed among them. Parents glanced over their shoulders during evening walks, teenagers paused in sudden unease, and neighbors exchanged furtive glances at unfamiliar faces. The conviction, while monumental, did not erase the haunting awareness that a life had been stolen, and that the normalcy they once took for granted had been irrevocably fractured. Detective Mark Reynolds, the veteran who had spent decades unraveling the threads of this case, found himself reflecting on the sheer persistence required to pursue truth across 25 years. Each detail of that fateful October night, each tiny fiber, every smear of DNA, the patterns of footsteps across damp soil, have been painstakingly analyzed and reanalyzed, cataloged, and cross-referenced. The advancements in forensic technology had breathed new life into evidence long considered inert, transforming old fragments into the keys that finally unlocked the mystery. Yet for Reynolds, the victory was tempered by the stark reminder of how easily justice could have slipped through the cracks, delayed by oversight, limited resources, and the simple passage of time. In revisiting the Parker residence, investigators noted subtle, persistent traces that had been overlooked in the initial investigation. The scratches along the hardwood floors, once dismissed as incidental wear, now hinted at a desperate struggle, a silent testimony to the terror Emily endured. The positioning of furniture, shifted imperceptibly, suggested the maneuvering of a predator intent on control. In the bedroom, trace fibers collected from the carpet and bedding confirmed the suspect's presence, corroborating the DNA evidence from the van. Each microscopic detail, once invisible to the naked eye, now spoke volumes, painting a picture of premeditation, patience, and calculated malice. The trial itself became a national spectacle, a case study in both the evolution of forensic science and the enduring emotional resonance of unsolved crimes. Prosecutors meticulously reconstructed the suspect's movements in the hours before Emily's disappearance, using enhanced surveillance footage, digital maps, and modern analytical techniques to recreate every step. Witness testimonies, once contradictory and unreliable, were recontextualized through new evidence, providing clarity that had eluded investigators in 1998. The courtroom brimmed with intensity, a tension born not only from the gravity of the accusations, but also from the decades-long anticipation of accountability. Outside the courtroom, the Parker family experienced a profound, complicated relief. Laura Parker, whose grief had evolved in a quiet determination over 25 years, found herself both liberated and burdened by the culmination of the case. David Parker, steadfast and methodical, had followed every lead, every report, every breakthrough with relentless attention, ensuring no detail was left unexamined. Emily's older siblings, now adults grappling with their own lingering trauma, walked a delicate balance between closure and the enduring weight of memory. Their collective experience underscored the profound human cost of unresolved violence. Decades of uncertainty, fear, and grief that could only be partially assuaged by the identification and conviction of the perpetrator. In the community, the narrative of Emily Parker became a point of reflection and education. Local schools invited law enforcement to speak about the importance of vigilance, personal safety, and awareness of one's surroundings. Neighborhood watch programs were reinvigorated, and residents embraced a heightened consciousness of the ordinary threats that can lurk beneath the veneer of suburban peace. The case served as a cautionary tale, a stark illustration of the thin line between security and vulnerability, and the critical role of community engagement in preventing tragedy. The psychological profile of the killer, developed through collaboration between criminal psychologists, forensic experts, and behavioral analysts, revealed an unsettling blend of charm, calculation, and detachment. His ability to integrate seamlessly into ordinary life, avoiding suspicion while committing an act of extreme violence, exemplified the chilling reality that predators can exist unnoticed in familiar environments. Patterns of prior minor offenses, each seemingly inconsequential in isolation, formed a blueprint for escalation, culminating in the meticulously planned abduction and murder of Emily Parker. The analysis became a tool not only for understanding the crime, but also for shaping preventative measures in communities across California. As media coverage expanded, Emily's story reached audiences far beyond Northern California. Documentaries, podcasts, and true crime specials highlighted the interplay of persistence, forensic innovation, and human determination that had ultimately led to the resolution of the case. Social media forums buzzed with speculation, analysis, and discussion, dissecting the minutiae of evidence and the implications of long-delayed justice. Emily Parker's narrative became emblematic of the broader struggle against unresolved violence, inspiring renewed focus on cold cases nationwide. Yet, even amidst these reflections, a lingering unease persisted. The neighborhood could no longer view its streets with naive familiarity. Ordinary sounds, footsteps on gravel, the distant hum of engines, the rustle of leaves, were tinged with the memory of that night. The van that had once roamed the streets, the footsteps across damp soil, the subtle shifts in furniture during the struggle, all remained etched in collective memory. Residents became acutely aware of the fragility of safety, understanding that vigilance and awareness are ongoing responsibilities, not one-time assurances. Detective Reynolds continued to monitor the impact of the case on both the community and law enforcement practices. He advised departments on the importance of meticulous evidence preservation, long-term commitment to unresolved cases, and the integration of emerging forensic technologies. The Parker case became a benchmark for successful cold case resolution, demonstrating how persistence, collaboration, and technological advancement could overcome decades of uncertainty. Investigators nationwide studied the methodologies employed, drawing lessons in both investigative rigor and the human dimensions of prolonged grief and community trauma. In the Parker household, personal reflection intertwined with collective remembrance. Photographs of Emily, once displayed only in private albums, were now part of public tributes, honoring her memory while reinforcing the significance of awareness and justice. Family members shared stories of her laughter, her ambitions, her ordinary teenage moments now illuminated by extraordinary tragedy. These narratives served both as memorials and as cautionary reminders, emphasizing that the true cost of unresolved violence extends far beyond the immediate act, infiltrating every aspect of life for those left behind. As months passed following the conviction, the community gradually adapted to a new normal. Magnolia Avenue resumed its rhythms, but the memory of Emily Parker remained omnipresent. Neighborhood gatherings, once casual and carefree, now included discussions of safety protocols, security awareness, and proactive vigilance. Local schools incorporated the lessons of the case into educational programs, ensuring that future generations understood the importance of observation, caution, and responsiveness. The enduring presence of Emily's story, integrated into daily life, exemplified the transformative potential of unresolved tragedy when met with determination and collective action. The legacy of the case extended to broader societal implications. Law enforcement agencies reevaluated cold case protocols, ensuring meticulous preservation of evidence and rigorous reexamination as technological capabilities evolved. Forensic advancements, once theoretical, were applied in practice, revealing insights previously considered unattainable. Emily Parker's case became a template for effective long-term investigation, demonstrating the intersection of patience, innovation, and methodical scrutiny. The resolution illustrated not only the capacity for justice, but also the enduring importance of commitment to unresolved crimes. Despite the closure, the emotional resonance of Emily Parker's story remained profound. The psychological imprint of trauma, loss, and prolonged uncertainty persisted in both the family and the broader community. Therapy, counseling, and ongoing support networks became vital resources, acknowledging that legal resolution does not equate to emotional closure. Emily's story highlighted the multifaceted impact of violent crime, demonstrating that while justice may be served, the aftershocks ripple across decades, altering lives in ways that cannot be fully quantified or remedied. For Detective Reynolds, the finality of the case did not diminish the reflective intensity of his work. He continued to engage with unresolved investigations, applying lessons learned from Emily Parker's case to new challenges. Each cold case carried with it the potential for similar breakthroughs, reinforcing the principle that persistence, attention to detail, and the thoughtful application of advancing technologies can illuminate even the darkest, most protracted mysteries. The detective's personal and professional evolution mirrored the transformation of investigative practice itself. Patient, methodical, and ultimately victorious in the face of time's eroding effects. Even as justice was formally acknowledged, the haunting nature of the crime remained palpable. The details of Emily's final night, reconstructed through forensic science, testimony, and painstaking analysis, continued to resonate in the minds of those closest to the case. The precision of the killer's actions, the meticulous planning, and the calculated execution underscored the terrifying capacity for human malevolence to operate undetected for years. Yet, in contrast, the resilience, persistence, and unwavering dedication of law enforcement, combined with advances in technology, illustrated the enduring potential for truth to emerge from the shadows, no matter how long it takes. The resolution of Emily Parker's case, while monumental, served as a testament to the enduring complexity of human experience. It illustrated the delicate interplay between crime, memory, technology, and justice, highlighting how unresolved acts of violence echo across time and space. The cold case, once frozen in uncertainty, had been resolved through meticulous attention, technological innovation, and an unyielding commitment to truth. Emily Parker's story, her life interrupted yet remembered, became a benchmark for understanding the human, social, and procedural dimensions of long-delayed justice. In the quiet hours of Magnolia Avenue, as the sun set over familiar rooftops and ordinary routines resumed, the memory of Emily Parker persisted as both a caution and a reminder. Her story, meticulously reconstructed and legally concluded, continues to influence practices, perceptions, and policies in communities far beyond the street where she once walked. The interplay of tragedy, persistence, and resolution underscores the capacity of humanity to confront darkness, reclaim agency, and honor those lost through diligent, unwavering pursuit of justice. Even with the verdict rendered, Magnolia Avenue remained a street shadowed by memory. Ordinary life had returned on the surface, children riding bicycles along familiar sidewalks, neighbors chatting over fences, the soft hum of daily routines resuming their rhythm. But beneath the veneer of normalcy, the invisible scars of 1998 persisted. Every corner, every streetlight, every garden held a quiet reminder of Emily Parker's life cut short and the predator who had once moved silently among them. The conviction had answered the legal question, but the emotional resonance of the tragedy remained raw, lingering in the hearts of those who had watched, waited, and feared for decades. Detective Mark Reynolds, having dedicated more than 25 years to the case, found himself reflecting on the extraordinary patience required to see justice fulfilled. Each fragment of evidence, once overlooked or misunderstood, had contributed to the eventual breakthrough. Fibers from Emily's clothing, traces of DNA from the van, even the subtle positioning of household objects. All microscopic details had coalesced into a narrative that exposed the killer's calculated precision. Reynolds recognized that the victory was as much a testament to persistence as it was to scientific advancement. Every swab, every photograph, every note meticulously preserved over the decades had become a thread, unraveling the tightly woven deception that had once eluded justice. The trial had brought to light the chilling details of Emily's final hours. Enhanced footage, digital reconstructions, and forensic modeling recreated her movements with near precision. She had left her friend's house on that October evening, unaware of the eyes tracking her every step. Streetlights cast long, wavering shadows, the same orange glow that would later frame her final moments in tragic clarity. Witnesses came forward with memories sharpened by time, recounting glimpses of a van and a shadowy figure lurking at the edges of perception. These seemingly minor recollections, once dismissed, became critical pieces of the puzzle when combined with the technological advancements of the 2020s. The suspect's actions, analyzed in meticulous detail, revealed a pattern of patience and calculation. He had chosen Emily deliberately, monitored her routines, and executed a plan designed to leave minimal trace. Yet, the very thoroughness of his methodology created the conditions for his eventual capture. Fibers transferred from his van to Emily's clothing, trace data left on surfaces once considered insignificant, and the subtle markers of struggle in her bedroom, each now illuminated by modern forensic techniques, revealed a story he could no longer conceal. The painstaking reconstruction of the crime, layer by layer, provided a chilling insight into the mind of a methodical predator. The Parker family, grappling with both relief and the lingering pain of loss, became vocal advocates for cold case resolution. Magnolia Avenue itself underwent a transformation in response to the tragedy and its resolution. Neighborhood watch programs expanded, incorporating lessons from Emily's case to improve surveillance, reporting, and community awareness. Residents shared stories of minor incidents, re-examined in light of the past, and implemented practical safety measures, from enhanced lighting to more attentive observation of unusual activity. The collective memory of the event, reinforced by both media coverage and community action, instilled a cautious vigilance, a reminder that safety is never guaranteed, and that even familiar spaces can conceal danger. The media attention surrounding the case magnified its reach, transforming Emily Parker's story into a national point of reference. Documentaries, podcasts, and true crime specials dissected every aspect of the investigation, from initial missteps to the eventual technological breakthroughs that unlocked the cold case. Social media communities engaged in detailed analyses, comparing forensic methods, timelines, and witness accounts. Emily's narrative became emblematic of the enduring power of persistence, illustrating how decades of unresolved violence can finally yield to patience, diligence, and scientific innovation. Yet, despite the conviction, questions lingered. Why had Emily been targeted? Were there other victims whose experiences remained hidden? The investigation into the suspect's past revealed patterns of minor offenses escalating toward the lethal act, yet no definitive connections to other crimes could be confirmed. The psychological profile painted a portrait of meticulous calculation, detachment, and manipulation, a reminder that some aspects of human behavior remain elusive, even in the face of overwhelming evidence. This ambiguity reinforced the importance of vigilance, not only in legal practice, but in everyday life, as communities grappled with the unpredictable nature of violence. Detective Reynolds continued to revisit every detail, every report, and every scrap of evidence, both for professional diligence and personal reflection. He reviewed the progression of investigative techniques, noting how digital enhancements, DNA amplification, and forensic modeling had transformed seemingly insurmountable obstacles into solvable mysteries. The case became a living classroom for law enforcement, demonstrating the importance of long-term commitment, careful documentation, and interdisciplinary collaboration in cold case resolution. Reynolds' own perspective evolved, blending the satisfaction of justice achieved with the sobering recognition of the enduring human impact of violence. Community reflection intertwined with broader societal implications. Emily Parker's case highlighted the necessity of rigorous evidence preservation and timely reevaluation of unresolved cases. Law enforcement agencies, inspired by the successful resolution, reevaluated their own cold case protocols, integrating lessons learned and emphasizing the intersection of persistence, innovation, and human observation. Educational programs incorporated the story into discussions of personal safety, the psychological impact of crime, and the ethical responsibility to pursue truth. The narrative of Emily Parker transcended the specific crime, becoming a symbol of resilience, awareness, and the potential for justice, no matter the passage of time. In private moments, the Parker family navigated the complex mix of relief, grief, and enduring emotional resonance. Photographs, mementos, and shared memories of Emily became both anchors and reminders of loss. Each story told, each memory revisited, reinforced the human dimension of the case, an acknowledgement that legal resolution, while critical, cannot fully reconcile the emotional and psychological impact of a life stolen. Therapy, community support, and shared reflection became essential, offering pathways to navigate the grief that legal verdicts alone could not address. The broader significance of the case extended to criminology and law enforcement. Analysts emphasized the importance of integrating behavioral profiling, forensic science, and community engagement in cold case investigations. Emily Parker's story became a benchmark, illustrating the confluence of patient investigation, technological evolution, and careful documentation in unraveling decades-old mysteries. Scholars, professionals, and practitioners examined the case for insights, noting how minor details, once dismissed, could become pivotal in revealing truth when examined through the lens of modern techniques. Even as Magnolia Avenue resumed its semblance of ordinary life, the psychological and emotional imprint of 1998 remained indelible. Residents acknowledged that the landscape of safety had been permanently altered, that ordinary routines carried the potential for unforeseen danger, and that vigilance, community engagement, and awareness were vital for protection. Emily Parker's story, reconstructed through decades of meticulous effort, became a lens through which ordinary citizens, educators, and law enforcement could assess risk, understand human behavior, and appreciate the necessity of persistent inquiry in the face of uncertainty. Detective Reynolds, reflecting on the culmination of his work, recognized that the resolution of the case represented both a personal and professional milestone. It was a testament to decades of effort, the patient accumulation of evidence, and the evolution of investigative practices. Yet, it was also a reminder of the profound, enduring consequences of violent crime. The scars left on families, communities, and the collective consciousness. The Parker case underscored that while justice can be achieved, the impact of unresolved violence reverberates long after the final verdict, influencing behaviors, perceptions, and the fabric of community life. In the quiet aftermath, Emily Parker's memory served as both a warning and a beacon. Her story illustrated that even the most meticulously planned crimes leave traces, that persistence and technology can converge to reveal truth, and that the human cost of unresolved cases necessitates continued vigilance. The narrative transcended the immediate tragedy, informing policies, educational initiatives, and community practices, while simultaneously honoring the life lost and the resilience of those who refused to let the case fade into obscurity. Magnolia Avenue, though transformed by grief, gradually incorporated the lessons of the past into its daily rhythm. Neighborhoods became more attuned to subtle signs of irregularity, residents more proactive in reporting and observing, and schools more intentional in discussing safety and awareness. The collective memory of Emily Parker, reinforced by the successful resolution of the cold case, shaped both individual and communal behaviors, highlighting the intersection of tragedy, learning, and proactive prevention. Even as the final legal matters concluded, the emotional and psychological threads of the story remained potent. Emily Parker's life, reconstructed through forensic diligence and narrative exploration, continued to inform and influence. The details of her last evening, her routine interrupted, her final moments captured through modern analysis, served as enduring reminders of both vulnerability and the capacity for resilience. The cold case, once frozen in time, had become a narrative of justice, awareness, and the human capacity to confront and overcome darkness through determination, technology, and relentless pursuit of truth. Even with the trial behind them, the Parker family's life was irrevocably changed. Magnolia Avenue, familiar and once comforting, had become a landscape of memory. Each streetlight, each garden, each crack in the sidewalk a reminder of that fateful October night in 1998. Ordinary sounds, footsteps on gravel, distant engines, the rustle of leaves, carried the echo of the past, subtle yet persistent. The conviction had provided legal closure, but the emotional and psychological imprint of Emily Parker's death lingered, seeping into every corner of the neighborhood, into the very fabric of the community. Detective Mark Reynolds, whose career had been defined by painstaking attention to cold cases, understood the dual nature of victory and residual unease. The arrest, the trial, and the eventual conviction marked the culmination of decades of effort. Yet each new forensic discovery reminded him of how fragile the pursuit of justice could be. Every overlooked detail from the original investigation, fibers, DNA traces, witness statements, had become critical pieces in the puzzle. The painstaking process of revisiting and analyzing decades-old evidence highlighted the slow but relentless nature of truth, the way it persists even when obscured by time. The reconstruction of Emily's final hours remained a central focus. Investigators meticulously recreated her walk from her friend's house along Magnolia Avenue, the shadows cast by the orange streetlights stretching long and distorted. Witness accounts, long considered unreliable, gained new significance when cross-referenced with digital reconstructions and enhanced surveillance footage. The subtle signs of observation, the van parked at the corner, a fleeting shadow behind a hedge, painted a chilling picture of a predator whose patience and calculation had allowed him to operate undetected for decades. Each moment of Emily's final walk became a thread in the tapestry of premeditation that ultimately exposed her killer. The psychological profile of the suspect, constructed by forensic experts and criminal psychologists, revealed a terrifying blend of calculation, charm, and detachment. He had carefully studied routines, isolated vulnerabilities, and executed a plan with a precision that bordered on obsession. Minor offenses and suspicious behaviors from his past, initially dismissed or overlooked, formed a pattern that, in hindsight, signaled an escalation toward violence. The profile served as both an explanation and a warning, emphasizing how seemingly ordinary behavior can mask predatory intent and how vigilance, documentation, and community awareness are critical to preventing tragedy. Inside the courtroom, the technical details of the case were laid bare with precision and intensity. Prosecutors demonstrated the connections between the van, the trace fibers, and Emily's clothing. DNA evidence, once impossible to analyze with 1998 technology, was now presented in high-resolution visualizations, leaving no room for doubt. Witnesses provided accounts refined by memory and modern corroboration, bridging the gap between human recollection and scientific certainty. The trial became not only a forum for justice, but also a masterclass in the evolution of forensic investigation, showing how science and persistence can converge to illuminate even the most elusive crimes. The Parker family, navigating relief intertwined with enduring grief, became advocates for awareness and systemic change. Laura Parker spoke at community forums and law enforcement conferences, emphasizing the importance of persistence, evidence preservation, and the ethical responsibility to revisit cold cases. David Parker collaborated with investigators, ensuring that lessons from the case were applied to other unresolved investigations. Emily's siblings shared insights into the emotional and psychological toll of prolonged uncertainty, highlighting the importance of support systems and the human dimension of criminal investigation. Together, they transformed personal tragedy into public awareness, ensuring that Emily's legacy extended beyond the immediate resolution of her case. Magnolia Avenue itself evolved in response to the tragedy and its resolution. Neighborhood watch programs intensified, residents implemented safety measures, and the community engaged in proactive vigilance. Ordinary activities were approached with renewed caution, yet also with an understanding that awareness and preparedness can coexist with daily life. The community's response illustrated the transformative power of collective action, showing how tragedy can catalyze resilience, education, and long-term change. Emily Parker's story became a touchstone for discussions about safety, awareness, and the intersection of community, law enforcement, and justice. Media attention amplified the significance of the case, turning Emily Parker's story into a national conversation. Documentaries, podcasts, and news features explored the intricate web of investigation, forensic science, and human perseverance that led to the resolution of the cold case. Online forums dissected timelines, evidence, and procedural developments, engaging both amateur sleuths and professionals in detailed analysis. Emily's story became emblematic of the possibility of long-delayed justice, illustrating how persistence, technological innovation, and meticulous attention to detail can overcome decades of uncertainty and concealment. Despite the conviction, unresolved questions persisted. Why had Emily been chosen? Were there other victims whose experiences remained hidden? The investigation into the suspect's background revealed patterns of escalation, minor offenses that had gone unchecked, and behaviors that foreshadowed the violence of 1998. While no additional crimes could be definitively linked to him, the questions themselves became a focal point for reflection, underscoring the unpredictable and often opaque nature of human malevolence. The case emphasized that even when justice is achieved, the complexities of motive, behavior, and consequence may remain partly unresolved. Detective Reynolds continued to reflect on the broader implications of the case. The methodologies applied, careful evidence preservation, forensic innovation, digital reconstruction, and behavioral analysis, became templates for addressing other cold cases. Law enforcement agencies nationwide studied the Parker investigation, noting the importance of long-term commitment, interdisciplinary collaboration, and the application of evolving technology. The case demonstrated that no crime is truly beyond resolution if pursued with diligence, patience, and the integration of scientific advancement. In the Parker household, private remembrance intertwined with public advocacy. Photographs of Emily, her favorite possessions, and shared memories became both tributes and reminders of loss. Family members engaged in therapy, counseling, and community outreach, navigating the complex interplay of grief, relief, and ongoing emotional impact. Their experiences highlighted the enduring influence of unresolved violence on families, showing that legal closure, while essential, is only one component of emotional reconciliation and healing. Emily Parker's case had ripple effects beyond the immediate family and neighborhood. Schools incorporated her story into curricula on personal safety, awareness, and resilience. Law enforcement agencies adapted investigative protocols, emphasizing the critical importance of preserving evidence and revisiting cold cases with advancing technology. The story became a cultural touchstone, illustrating the intersection of human determination, scientific progress, and the relentless pursuit of truth. It provided a template for understanding both the nature of crime and the pathways to justice, even decades after an offense occurred. Magnolia Avenue, while gradually returning to routine, remained marked by memory. Residents recognized the fragile balance between security and vulnerability, integrating lessons from Emily Parker's case into daily life. Neighborhoods became more attentive, parents more proactive in discussing safety, and community structures more robust in observation and reporting. Emily Parker's story became a living narrative, reinforcing the importance of awareness, vigilance, and the persistent commitment of both individuals and institutions to confront potential danger. For Detective Reynolds, the resolution of the Parker case was both a professional triumph and a reflective milestone. The arrest, trial, and conviction illustrated the potential of patience, science, and meticulous documentation to achieve justice. Yet the enduring emotional and psychological impact of the crime served as a reminder that law enforcement work is never purely procedural, is deeply human, intertwined with grief, resilience, and the ongoing need to honor the experiences of victims and their families. Each cold case carries with it the potential for profound human impact, both in the lives lost and in the processes of resolution. Even with legal closure, the haunting details of Emily Parker's final night remained vividly reconstructed in the collective consciousness. Her steps along Magnolia Avenue, the fleeting glimpses of the van, the shadows cast by streetlights, and the subtle markers of struggle in her bedroom all persisted as reminders of both vulnerability and resilience. These details became teaching tools, cautionary tales, and emotional touchstones, emphasizing that while justice can restore balance, memory, awareness, and vigilance remain crucial components of communal and personal safety. Emily Parker's legacy extended into law enforcement, community education, and broader cultural awareness. Her story illustrated the transformative power of persistence, technological innovation, and collaborative effort in uncovering truth. It underscored the importance of vigilance, the necessity of revisiting unresolved cases, and the potential for human determination to overcome the barriers imposed by time. Even as decades had passed, the resolution of her case highlighted the enduring possibility of justice, the importance of remembrance, and the profound influence of a single life on an entire community. Even after the conviction, Magnolia Avenue remained suspended between memory and normalcy. The hum of daily life carried an undercurrent of unease. Footsteps on cracked sidewalks echoed with unspoken reminders of 1998, the year a predator had moved undetected through the familiar streets. Parents walked children home with sharper attention. Neighbors noted every unfamiliar car, every shadow lingering too long. The arrest and guilty verdict had provided justice, yet the emotional terrain of loss, trauma, and vigilance stretched on, an invisible landscape mapped in every glance, every precaution, every lingering fear. Detective Mark Reynolds, who had devoted decades to this cold case, understood the duality of closure and lingering shadow. The resolution of Emily Parker's murder represented the triumph of persistence, modern technology, and meticulous investigation, yet it also illuminated the slow accumulation of small failures, oversights, and misconnections over the years. Each minute fiber trace of DNA, and subtle footprint, once dismissed, had ultimately unlocked the narrative. Reynolds knew that the victory was hard-won and fragile, a reminder that time could either erode evidence or, when approached with precision, reveal truths long hidden. The reconstruction of Emily's last evening remained hauntingly vivid. She had walked the familiar streets from her friend's house, the soft glow of streetlights casting elongated shadows that now served as silent witnesses. Every glance over her shoulder, every fleeting sound of a distant engine, every shadow in the hedges became a testament to the predator watching, calculating, waiting. Enhanced surveillance footage and digital reconstructions brought clarity to moments once only partially recalled, merging human memory with technological precision. The predator's movements, once invisible, now formed a chilling pattern of obsession, patience, and meticulous premeditation. Analysis of the killer's behavior revealed a terrifying combination of normalcy and detachment. In everyday life, he had been unremarkable, blending seamlessly into the community, avoiding suspicion while meticulously tracking his victim. Minor offenses, ignored in the past, traced an incremental escalation toward lethal intent. Behavioral profiling provided insight into his obsessive tendencies, his strategic calculations, and his capacity for manipulation. The profile was not only explanatory but cautionary, a vivid illustration of how dangerous individuals can hide in plain sight, while their patterns, if observed, offer the possibility of prevention and resolution. Inside the courtroom, the meticulous assembly of evidence held the audience captive. Prosecutors presented the van, the fibers, the DNA traces, and the subtle markers of struggle, each reinforced by high-resolution visualizations and expert testimony. Witnesses recalled fleeting observations, now corroborated with modern forensic analysis. The courtroom became a stage for both the technical precision of justice and the raw emotional weight of decades of uncertainty. Every statement, every exhibit, every calculated reconstruction of Emily's last steps contributed to a narrative that was both terrifying and inexorably compelling. The Parker family, navigating the dualities of grief and relief, transformed personal tragedy into public advocacy. Laura Parker engaged with community forums, emphasizing vigilance and the ethical imperative to pursue unresolved cases. David Parker collaborated with investigative teams, sharing insights into procedural rigor and evidence preservation, ensuring lessons learned from Emily's case could prevent further tragedy. Emily's siblings spoke of the psychological toll of prolonged uncertainty, highlighting the necessity of support networks, therapy, and ongoing reflection. Together, they wove a legacy of resilience and awareness, turning loss into proactive engagement. Magnolia Avenue itself underwent a subtle transformation. Neighborhood watch initiatives expanded, lighting improvements were implemented, and residents heightened their attentiveness. Ordinary interactions were now punctuated with awareness, a quiet vigilance informed by memory and the lessons of tragedy. Emily Parker's story served as both warning and inspiration, embedding a culture of observation, caution, and communal responsibility. The ordinary street became an arena of heightened perception, where vigilance was both shield and tribute to a life lost too soon. The case's national resonance amplified Emily's story far beyond her neighborhood. Documentaries, podcasts, and investigative features dissected the meticulous work behind the cold case resolution. Digital forums analyzed evidence, timelines, and procedural breakthroughs. Emily Parker's narrative became emblematic of the possibility of long-delayed justice, demonstrating the power of persistence, technological innovation, and methodical scrutiny. The story captured the attention of both law enforcement professionals and the public, becoming a symbol of resilience, dedication, and the pursuit of truth against the eroding effects of time. Yet questions lingered. Why Emily? Were there other victims whose stories remained untold? Investigation into the killer's history revealed a disturbing pattern. Incremental escalation from minor offenses to violent action, a chilling roadmap of human malevolence. While no additional crimes were confirmed, the possibility remained, a sobering reminder that the layers of evil are often complex, unpredictable, and resistant to complete understanding. The unresolved elements underscored the limits of knowledge, even as legal justice was achieved, and emphasized the need for ongoing vigilance, observation, and preventive action. Detective Reynolds reflected deeply on the systemic lessons of the case. Evidence preservation, forensic innovation, and patient reevaluation had proven essential. Cold cases, long considered dormant, could yield answers when approached with rigor and technology. His reflection extended beyond professional satisfaction, encompassing the human dimension. The lives altered, the communities reshaped, and the psychological toll carried by those left behind. The Parker case illustrated the dual responsibility of law enforcement: to solve crime and to honor the enduring impact of human loss. Within the Parker household, private mourning and public advocacy intertwined. Photographs, keepsakes, and memories became both memorial and motivator. Family members engaged in therapy and community engagement, navigating the complexity of relief, grief, and ongoing emotional impact. Their experiences illustrated that closure in legal terms is only one part of reconciliation. The human and emotional dimensions persist, requiring attention, care, and the acknowledgement of enduring trauma. Emily Parker's story influenced broader practices in law enforcement and community education. Schools incorporated her case into discussions on personal safety, situational awareness, and resilience. Investigative agencies adjusted cold case protocols, emphasizing evidence preservation, detailed documentation, and integration of emerging technology. Emily's story became a model, illustrating how persistence, innovation, and meticulous attention to detail can overcome decades of uncertainty, providing lessons that extend beyond a single crime, reaching into the domains of prevention, education, and systemic improvement. Magnolia Avenue, gradually returning to everyday rhythm, remained haunted by memory. Residents acknowledged the fragility of safety, integrating lessons from Emily's story into routines. Parents became more proactive in teaching children about situational awareness. Neighborhoods refined their communal observation and reporting structures. Emily Parker's narrative, reconstructed and memorialized, influenced daily life, serving as a constant reminder that vigilance, awareness, and action are critical in preserving safety and responding to potential threats. Detective Reynolds viewed the resolution as a convergence of professional rigor and personal dedication. The case highlighted how decades of attention, patient accumulation of evidence, and forensic innovation can produce results. It also revealed the enduring human costs of crime, the trauma, grief, and long-term emotional impact experienced by victims' families and communities. Every cold case carries this duality, a lesson that justice is multifaceted, encompassing both legal accountability and the persistent emotional resonance of human loss. Even after legal closure, the haunting narrative of Emily Parker's final hours persisted. Every detail, the path along Magnolia Avenue, the fleeting shadow of the van, the subtle indicators of struggle, remained etched in collective consciousness. These reconstructions serve as cautionary tales and tools for education, emphasizing that vigilance, persistence, and awareness are crucial even when justice has been rendered. Emily Parker's story demonstrated the potential for both closure and continued reflection, illustrating the human capacity to confront darkness with determination, insight, and compassion. The legacy of the case extended across law enforcement, education, and public awareness. It highlighted the critical importance of preserving evidence, revisiting cold cases, and applying new technology. Emily Parker's story demonstrated how persistent investigation can overcome time's erosion, how human and technological resources can converge to reveal truth, and how a single life can shape understanding, behavior, and policy across communities. The case became emblematic of resilience, vigilance, and the enduring pursuit of justice in the face of prolonged uncertainty. As Magnolia Avenue settled into a new rhythm, the community carried the lessons of the past. Residents implemented heightened awareness, engaged in proactive observation, and integrated precautionary measures into daily life. Emily Parker's story, reconstructed through painstaking investigation, forensic analysis, and technological innovation, informed these behaviors. Her life, tragically cut short, became a catalyst for communal resilience, shaping both individual and collective approaches to safety, awareness, and responsibility. For Detective Reynolds, the culmination of decades-long work represented not only the successful resolution of a complex cold case, but also a reflection on the enduring human dimensions of crime and justice. The pursuit of truth required patience, technological mastery, and an unyielding commitment to uncovering what had been hidden. Yet, it also demanded empathy, respect, and recognition of the profound impact of unresolved violence on families and communities. The Parker case served as a benchmark for the delicate interplay of professional expertise and human understanding, a testament to the power of perseverance in achieving justice while honoring the memory of the victim. Even as routine resumed on Magnolia Avenue, the narrative of Emily Parker remained vivid. Her steps on familiar streets, the fleeting shadow of her abductor, the subtle traces left behind, all continued to resonate. These memories, reconstructed with precision and presented in court, serve as enduring reminders of both vulnerability and resilience. Emily Parker's case illustrated how even the longest unresolved tragedies can ultimately yield truth, justice, and reflection, while also highlighting the persistent psychological and communal echoes that accompany such profound loss. Even after the courtroom lights dimmed and the gavel had fallen, Magnolia Avenue remained a place suspended between memory and unease. The hum of daily life persisted, but ordinary sounds now carried a subtle tension. The crunch of gravel underfoot, the faint roar of engines in the distance, the rustle of leaves whispering through the evening air. Each familiar corner, every lamppost, and every garden bore silent witness to the night in October 1998 when Emily Parker's life was stolen. Justice had been delivered, yet the echoes of loss reverberated, shaping perceptions, behavior, and community consciousness long after the verdict. Detective Mark Reynolds, who had devoted decades to unraveling this cold case, understood the paradox of closure. The resolution represented the triumph of patience, meticulous investigation, and technological innovation, yet it also illuminated the fragility of justice delayed. Every overlooked detail from the original investigation, the fibers, the DNA traces, the subtle impressions left at the scene, had ultimately become essential evidence. Each minute piece, when re-examined with modern forensic techniques, formed a narrative of premeditation and cold calculation. Reynolds knew that the case demonstrated both the resilience of truth and the enduring danger of oversight. Emily's final hours were reconstructed with harrowing clarity. She had walked the familiar route from her friend's house, the orange glow of streetlights casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to reach for her. Every glance over her shoulder, every faint sound of a distant car, every movement of the bushes became a silent witness to the predator's observation. Witness statements, once deemed unreliable, gained renewed credibility through cross-referencing with digital reconstructions and advanced forensic modeling. The predator's path, once invisible, emerged as a meticulously executed plan, exposing the depth of his patience, precision, and predatory calculation. The psychological profile of the suspect revealed a chilling blend of detachment and control. In everyday life, he had been unremarkable, blending seamlessly into the community, masking a dangerous obsession beneath a facade of normalcy. Minor offenses, ignored or dismissed at the time, traced a pattern of escalating behavior, culminating in the abduction and murder of Emily Parker. Behavioral analysis provided insight into his calculated methodology, his ability to manipulate perception, and his meticulous attention to detail. The profile served not only as explanation, but as warning. Danger can exist in plain sight, and patterns, if observed, can reveal even the most elusive threat. The courtroom became a theater of tension, where forensic detail and human emotion intertwined. Prosecutors presented evidence with precision. Fibers transferred from the van to Emily's clothing, DNA traces previously undetectable, and subtle markers of struggle in her bedroom. Witnesses recounted fleeting observations, now corroborated by modern analysis. Every moment reconstructed, every thread of evidence displayed, underscored the relentless pursuit of truth and the meticulous work required to bring decades-old crimes to justice. The intensity of the proceedings left the audience riveted, bearing witness to both human resilience and the depth of malevolence that had gone undetected for so long. The Parker family navigated a complex landscape of relief, grief, and advocacy. Laura Parker spoke at community events, highlighting the importance of persistence and the ethical duty to pursue cold cases. David Parker worked closely with investigators, emphasizing the critical importance of evidence preservation and careful procedural review. Emily's siblings, now adults, shared their experiences of enduring uncertainty, drawing attention to the psychological toll of unresolved crime. Together, they transformed personal tragedy into a narrative of awareness, action, and resilience, ensuring that Emily's story informed both policy and public consciousness. Magnolia Avenue evolved as a community in response to the tragedy. Neighborhood watch programs expanded, local authorities enhanced surveillance, and residents adopted a heightened awareness of their surroundings. Ordinary daily routines were approached with new caution, yet the lessons gleaned from the Parker case fostered empowerment rather than fear. Emily Parker's story became an enduring guidepost, demonstrating how communal vigilance, education, and proactive measures can coexist with the rhythms of ordinary life, shaping both behavior and collective memory. National media attention amplified the significance of the case, transforming Emily Parker's story into a cautionary tale with widespread resonance. Documentaries, podcasts, and news features explored every dimension of the investigation, highlighting the intersection of patience, forensic innovation, and meticulous documentation. Online forums dissected evidence, timelines, and procedural breakthroughs, engaging both professionals and the public. Emily Parker's narrative became a symbol of the power of persistence and technology to illuminate truth, inspiring communities and law enforcement agencies alike to revisit unresolved cases with renewed dedication. Yet, even with convictions secured, lingering questions remained. Why Emily? Were there other victims? Investigation into the killer's past revealed incremental escalation. Minor offenses escalating into violent acts, a disturbing roadmap of hidden malevolence. While no additional crimes were definitively linked to him, the unanswered questions served as a stark reminder that the complexity of human behavior often defies complete understanding. The unresolved elements underscored the importance of vigilance, preventive action, and continued investigation, demonstrating that legal closure does not eliminate uncertainty or the broader implications of violence. Detective Reynolds reflected on systemic lessons derived from the case. Preservation of evidence, technological innovation, and interdisciplinary collaboration proved essential. Cold cases, once considered dormant, can yield results when approached with rigor, patience, and modern forensic tools. His reflection encompassed both professional and human dimensions, acknowledging the profound impact of unresolved violence on families, the community, and investigators themselves. The Parker case illustrated that successful resolution requires both technical skill and empathy, a balance of methodical expertise and